What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to HearthCenter. It's week 5 in THL, and as always, thank you for being here tonight. It's a wonderful Wednesday, and I'm joined as usual by Icon, who is somewhere or invisible. Oh, there he is. Hey, he popped up. What's going on, Icon?
It's good. Not much, man. I was just chewing, so I made sure that I was off camera. I've finished my pizza now. I hope your night's going well, my dude.
No, pre-game pizza is always important, and appreciate the courtesy. And LotusKnight's joining us as well. How's it going tonight, Lotus?
Good. How are you doing, Donde?
You know me, same old, just hanging in there. Excited for another week of HearthCenter, another week of THL, another week of Hearthstone in general, where a lot of stuff is happening, but we won't touch on a ton of that tonight because there's a lot happening in THL. So we're gonna stay focused over here in THL tonight. As you can see, the topics. Lotus Facecam, please. You're gonna have to convince him because I can't convince him. Um, so we're going to talk about. Obviously, this is a big week. This is the debut of the power rankings for the for Legacy and Hero, the player power rankings. Of course, we've been having the team power rankings on the various shows as the seasons have gone on. But that's really what we're here for. This is kind of why the show got started in the first place, and we always wait till after 4 weeks of play to debut the power rankings. So not only are we going to reveal those tonight, we're going to talk about what makes a good power ranking, just kind of what goes into what we do, and just kind of have a general discussion about that. We're going to talk about the early meta impacts on the new cards, the 23 new cards that we briefly touched on last week, and then we're going to talk about week 5. So there's a lot of stuff to go through tonight. I'm excited. Icon was so excited he couldn't even stay in the room. He came back in the room. That's cool.
It's water. Stay hydrated, chat. It's important. Make sure your body gets enough water.
That's a good PSA. Definitely want to make sure water keeps you at your best for sure. So that's good. So before we reveal the power rankings, I want to talk about a little bit about like what I go through when I guess to let's back up before. As always, I make the power rankings, and then Lotus and Icon will just shred me, which was Jammy's job too back in the day. I'm sure he'll come back around at some point when his life slows down. But these rankings are me, so you can blame me 100%. If Lotus and Icon, disagree, obviously they will be very vocal, and so that this is not on them if you don't like what you see. I will say there's always going to be arguments no matter what, but that's okay. So, what makes a good power ranking? I think to me it's important that it's not just a straight representation of record, or in our case, record in game score. I think a very key component is who you play. So it's really hard to quantify that in a way that is fair a lot of the time, but I've attempted to do that when I make the power rankings each week. So I try to look at who you've played, what the outcome was of those games, and weight it accordingly. It's not a hard and fast formula, but it's kind of still by feel. So Icon, you've been with me now for what? This is your 3rd season at HearthCenter, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, this is.
And you definitely disagree with me from time to time on the rankings.
It's my job, yes.
It's your job, yeah. So, overall, is there when you're looking at a power ranking, what are you really looking for to represent, an accurate description of or a depiction of how players are doing in relation to other players, and not in just THL. I know you're involved in other esports as well. Just kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. So, I think that context to statistics is huge, as well as strength of schedule, and as well as the idea that. Okay, dude, let me just mute that phone. I love being an adult. So, as I was saying, there's a little bit of a matrix within THL where at the beginning of the power rankings, typically there will be less possible sort of strength of schedule arguments, and sort of less of a data set that we can draw from it, so we'll kind of just have to go a little bit more off of statistics. But as the data set expands, we can sort of take more out of the individual wins and losses, and as we've got like a broader spectrum to look into, we can sort of dig deeper into like the little details, and it sort of gets more fleshed out as time goes on. So I think generally by the end of the season, the power rankings that Donde makes sort of reach its like zenith, and we sort of end up agreeing more and disagreeing less, and it sort of refines itself over the course of the season. So
Yeah, that's a point not only that you just brought up now, but Jamie's has brought up in the past of the earlier in the season, the less he feels that the strength of schedule should matter. And that is true to a point. We are working with small sample sizes. I mean, our seasons only last 7 to 10 weeks typically, depending on the series. And that's tough to really get a full scope, real full evaluation, especially when you look at, something like Overwatch League, for example. They play tons of games. And then there's matches within each, like a board counts as, one part of the whole match. So there's a lot of like there's a lot to be said about an extended season that would really make it easier to evaluate players on the whole. And it comes down to the fact that we just don't have a lot of data a lot of the time. Where did Icon go? We just
Oh,
don't
he had to go.
check Twitch chat. I got you, dude.
have. Okay. Yeah, it's yeah, sorry, lost my train of thought for a second there. It's a hard when the season's so short, and you're not looking at
Right.
a long stretch of games, and we don't have a whole lot of data outside of games and matches played. Lotus, you're a big numbers person, which I can totally appreciate. You've watched the show before, you've seen from the outside, just looking at the standings. But like, what to you is in a good power ranking?
So that's the kind of question that I could spend 3 hours talking about. And I do in courses where I TA and things like that, and we would reach no conclusion. I'll just give a brief overview of what I think. Basically, the goal of a power ranking is to say this player has a better field for him, so he did better compared to who he was than the others on his field. If it was just better player, most of the times it would be one seeds because they tend to have higher PR. They've won more games. Not always true, but most of the times it would be true. So to me, a good power ranking is one that can accommodate just the difference of the players to basically neighbors. I think the other thing I would say that a good ranking must have is if there's a clear case where A did better than B and they are at the same level, then you want to make sure that they have the same, that is reflected in the power rankings.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act and trying to make sure we incorporate as much data as possible. Like I said, there's not a
Yes.
whole lot in THL, unfortunately, but yeah, we do with what we can with it, and I enjoy looking at the power rankings, knowing that essentially at the end of the day, it's somewhat arbitrary, and
Yeah.
everyone's gonna have their own take on it. Everyone's gonna have their own opinion. So I just think it's fun. It sparks debate. A lot of the time, it's friendly debate. Fortunately, why didn't you pick my teammate for the top 10 rather than this person? So I can totally understand why people get heated about it, but it's a lot of fun for me, and that's kind of why I got into it in the first place. So
Right.
yeah. Why don't we take a look at the power rankings? We'll start with legacy, right? I'm gonna pop us over here. Just 1 second. All right. So we are going to. In the past, what we've done is, reveal it little by little, and I found that it unfortunately doesn't really lend to good conversation because there's no context. You're looking at player 10, player 9. Like we know who's above because we preview the power rankings. So that way, I want everybody to have um, some thoughts on it before we go into the show. But for the viewers, there's no context, so it's not really that engaging. So we're going to show you everything. So it's going to be 1 through 10, plus the honorable mentions, which are the next 5 players. So hold on just one quick sec while we get that up. And just in case people, because we're kind of light on viewers right now. Please, those who are here, please do remember to click subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when we're going live, because it looks like nobody knows that we went live tonight.
I'll post again. Make sure I didn't make a mistake.
No, you didn't. You didn't make a mistake.
Did you do at here or like at live?
Donde did.
Okay, dope.
Make another little quick post. Anyway, let's talk about the Legacy Power Rankings. And I think there's going to be a little bit of contention in both of these, but this one seems to be probably the more contentious of the two from our conversations that we had in production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So starting at the bottom here, we have quite a bit of red. Though you'll see as we move up the list, we move more to the gold side of things. So our honorable mentions were all 5 were 3-1 players: Starlax, Myanodon, Desharmo, Surlos, and Base. Starlax with a 10-7, Myanodon 11-4, Desharmo 11-5, Surlos 11-6, and Base 9-9. So Base is kind of the outlier there, and he had one really big win. I'll have to look up exactly. I forget the win he had, but it was a humongous win, and that was kind of what bumped him into the honorable mentions over some of the other players.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll take a look at which one that was.
Yeah, if you don't mind. But just before we move into the top 10 itself, Icon, what are your initial thoughts on the honorable mentions there, the 3-1 squad?
I'm gonna start a petition to replace myself with Base because I'm 9-6, and the only person I lost to was Comp. So, well, heck. Other than that, 11-4 is a really, really great score to have for 3-1. You're really happy about that if you're Myanodon. Definitely a lot of sweeps there. Same with Desharmo. A lot of the perennial 1 seeds in THL, getting some really sweet records going on there, and definitely also pretty cool to see 10-7 if you're Starlax. Although actually, I'm curious what factor puts 10-7 over 11-4. Like in terms of matchups, unless it was a question of like who they played.
Yeah, when in doubt, it's gotta be who they played, and the signature win factor, I'll call it. Like who you might have you might have not had a chance to play against somebody who has a really high record in the early going, so you haven't really had that chance to prove yourself. That's just kind of a side effect of the scheduling being random. So in this regard, it's all a factor of who they've played so far in the performance in those big matchups. So I will say, Icon, I'm pretty sure you were 16th.
Damn, that's just like I can't think of a good joke about like being last in line for something. But I insert it here. Diamond says, I'm sorry, Darius isn't number 1. I mean, he's number 1 in our hearts, but statistically, yes. Comp has just absolutely played out of his mind, like under the radar, and so I think that's a pretty deserved number 1, honestly. Like,
yeah, 12-1.
Like Darius' storyline aside, like we have to do power rankings in the context of this season, and while he is obviously super, super, super undefeated and still hasn't dropped, in the context of this season, Comp is like very close with him in that regard.
Yeah, Comp a player that doesn't play every season too. So impressive.
Yeah, just 2 quick updates. The players that Base beat that were pretty big were Myanodon and Surlos, both who are in honorable mentions as well.
Yeah, so he's dropped 2 wins now on top 15 players. So sure, that's definitely important.
Yeah. The other thing, I believe one of the 2 top players are actually playing each other, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll talk about that later.
Oh, we definitely will talk about that later. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yes, they are playing each other this week, which is going to be a pretty hype match. It seems like every match Darius plays is pretty hype.
Yeah.
So before we move on, Lotus, any initial other thoughts on the initial 5 here?
I think these are all good players. It's interesting to me how all of them are from Red.
Yeah, just kind of how it worked out.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a particular reason or if it's just a coincidence, but it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, when I'm doing the rankings, I don't really look who's in what conference. I'm just ranking straight up as I would, and then afterwards I separate out the colors, of course, to make sure that graphically everything looks correct. So we'll get into the top 10 here and talk about some of the questions that are popping up. So as we talked about at the top, just because you are 4-0 does not mean you're necessarily going to be ranked higher than someone 3-1, but that is just kind of a side effect of who you've played so far, your match score, and you know that it's going to look a little funky. So let's explain. Obviously, we'll go up the list here. Catman is 4-0, and he's in the 10th place at 12-6. Dano 3-1, 9-4. I believe he's a newcomer to THL, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is new.
All right. Honest Zabe is 4-0, 12-7. Shimjim 4-0, 12-4 in the 7 slot. Mr. Shad's 3-1, 11-4, as is Icicles at 3-1, 11-4. They are 6-5 respectively. Then, of course, Ridiculous Hat at 3-1 is our highest placed non-undefeated player at 11-4. Super Murloc 4-0, 12-4. Derivis 4-0, 12-4. And then Comp leading the way at 4-0, 12-1. So, I don't think anybody really had a particular problem as far as the top 3 there when we were discussing it.
No.
Is that correct to say?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And of course,
they're all doing really.
Oh, they're all doing very well, and their records reflect that. They're great players. So, not that I'm trying to gloss over any of them, but kudos to our top 3. But once you start to get to 4, that's where it sort of, I guess you would say, falls apart in terms of the arguments you can make. Because why are these 4-0 players not higher ranked than some of the 3-1 players? So that's where the strength schedule kind of comes into play a little bit, which, like I said, this will all even out as the season goes along, and everyone in your conference will eventually play everyone in that seed, though there is the chance that somebody will shift up or down, so the schedules won't be 100% congruent. But that's the main thing here. You look at, like, obviously 4 through 6 are all 3-1 players, are all 11-4. I really easily could have just said 4A, 4B, 4C, quite honestly, for all those players, as I consider them to be pretty much exactly equal.
Well, I do think Shimjim should be above them, though. He had quite a few rough matches, and he did super well. I think he should be number 4. I get the reason, and there are some matchups. But yeah, other than that, it seems fair. All of them can interchange for sure.
I'm gonna look at who Shimjim played right now to try and get some context on that.
Well, one of them might have been me.
Is that you say that very sadly?
I do, yeah. No, it was honestly that was my worst match for.
Wait, no, he 3-2 Josen. Never mind, I completely agree with this now. He went 5 games versus Vandergrift. Never mind, he's fine at 7.
That doesn't mean you're bad.
I mean, it is Vandergrift. I don't know.
I mean, Hearthstone is obviously a game that has inherent randomness, so it's not, any given day can anyone really beat another player. I think any one of us could go up against a GM tomorrow, and if we get Prismatic Lens on 4, and we high roll the crap out of them with Murloc Paladin, we win the game. So it just happens that way sometimes.
Listen, 2 of you could go up against a GM and win tomorrow. Okay, I'm not putting myself in there.
Yeah, it does depend on the GM.
Wait, is Pather still going to be a GM? Because, like, bet, dude, I don't know.
I think I've played some GMs before. I can't recall specifically, though.
I've definitely played them on ladder. I have beaten Zillet on ladder. I've beaten Ike on ladder. Is Ike a GM? Yeah, right?
I don't think he is, but there was like a big thing during the first season of GM that was like that Ike is a very deserving player, but didn't actually end up getting it. I think that was like a storyline that was actually talked about a little bit.
One of the the big wins for Shimjim so far, since we're talking about him, he did beat Fuel 3-1, but Fuel's 0-4 this season, so it doesn't quite hold the same weight as a Fuel victory has in the past.
Yeah, I would agree.
Sure. I do want to note, though, all the 1 seeds in gold are crazy. And any win against the 1 seeds in gold is just crazy.
Yeah, that's a point you've been harping on for quite a few weeks now
Yeah.
too. That the
There's
gold.
only one non 550.
Oh yeah, gold is strong. It's very top heavy, and I think we'll start to see some of these players obviously move down. In particular, Comp and Daravis, they both can't win this week, so we're going to see probably either a new number one or if Daravis happens to be human, he might move down the rankings a little bit this week.
I want to see Daravis go undefeated the entire season, all the way to championships, and just absolutely break every record that we've ever had.
It's it is interesting to see it. Like, I mean, obviously, I don't want to lose to him if I have to play him. So I will say I will put a caveat in there that I will be rooting for him up until the point where it affects my team. But luckily, we're in red, so I don't have to worry about that unless we end up playing them in the crossover or somehow make the playoffs. But yeah. So I like the initial rankings here. We're going to start to see separation, of course, as we keep going to the second half of the season. So you guys want to talk about some hero?
Let's talk about some hero.
Definitely.
Hero. All right. So same deal. Going to reveal everything here at once. The distribution's a little more even between purple and teal.
Mm-hmm.
And our honorable mentions you'll see at the bottom here. Jim Philos, 3-1, 10-5. 8-bit 3-1, 10-5. Ron Mexico, 3-1, 10-5. And then Ann Falls, 3-1, 11-6. And Twos is 3-1, 3-1, 11-6. So a little healthier mix of the teal and the purple here, which I think speaks to a little bit more of the conference balance over in Hero versus the conference balance over in Legacy. Two says he's 4-1 now. Well, buddy, I don't do the rankings quite yet for next week, so why don't you slow your roll and we'll see if you make the top 10.
Yeah. Most likely will.
Most likely with a 4-1, with a sweep this week, I think you'll probably be maybe not instant number one, but certainly a contender for top 10. So before we jump into the top 10, Lotus, I'll start with you here. Do you have any thoughts on those honorable mentions? Anybody that maybe you thought should have been in the top 10, or am I missing anyone entirely?
I think Twos is playing really well, and we play together a lot, so I will tend to always say that. But no, that seems like what I expected the top 10, the honorable mentions to be. These are all great players. Most of them have been in THL for a while. I believe all of them have. Not really a surprise.
Yeah, Ron
Omzi has not. Omzi has never played before.
Well, bud, we're only talking about the honorable mentions right now.
Oh, wait, no, sorry, these are only the honorable mentions.
Ron Mexico, this is only his second season, so he would be, I guess, the most relative newcomer to that crew. But everybody else has been around for at least 3 seasons now. So yeah, obviously, anybody 4-0 did make the top 10 in this, just like in Legacy, and there were plenty of 3-1s that missed. So if you're not actually in the top 15 on screen here, and you were 3-1, that's not meant to be a slight. Icon. It's not meant to be a slight to you in any way. It's just the fact that it's very competitive when we're talking about only 4 weeks in the season so far with the records. So we're already getting questions in chat why who is higher than someone else. So let's move into the top 10 so we can go ahead and address those right away. We do have some DQ wins here, which we always talk about how they affect the rankings, so we can go into that as well. So leading off with Snake in the 10th spot at 3-1 with a DQ win, 6-5. LotusKnight 3-0, 9-4 in the 9 hole. 2-star Mako 3-1, 11-5. Brushy Tuna 3-1, 9-5 at 7. Shiny Pants 3-1, 10-6 at 6. Mr. Shads makes his second appearance of the night. He just missed the top 5 in Legacy, but he gets top 5 here in Hero, 3-1, 11-7. Typical Tyrant 4-0 with a DQ win, 9-4. Omzi 4-0, the newcomer, with a DQ win, 9-3. Myself at 4-0, 12-6. I've been waiting so long to put myself high up on one of these rankings, but I've never deserved it. And then Jammies, my teammate, 4-0, 12-3. just absolutely killing it. Maybe not quite to the level that Comp is, but hard to complain when he's averaging fewer than one loss every week. So I guess first of all, just overall impressions. Icon, I'll start with you here before we go into the specific questions that are popping up. Icon, what do you think?
BIG's is insane. Your top 2 seeds are 8-0 together, and that's a really 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 awesome record to have at your back when you're trying to get through a week. And so
we do like that, yes.
Yeah, that's a really really incredible amount of success. Omzi is a really cool success story as well as the replacement for some of ATL's better performing players like Binoculars and Alien Santa was kind of a question mark, and Omzi definitely showed up. He's doing really well for ATL, so that seems like a really good pickup and something that ended up working out for them for the better.
Yeah, absolutely hard to argue with someone going 4-0 in their first 4 THL matches. Lotus, how do you feel about the top 10? Anything that you're feeling could have been maybe adjusted here?
So the first thing I'll say, I want to congratulate my Kel's Good Boys mates, because 3 of us are in the top 11.
I thought you were just going to straight up congratulate yourself, which would have been fantastic, by the way.
I'm technically also congratulating myself, but mostly I want to thank them for making me a better player, helping me with lists, helping me think of what I'm doing, and I think they all had a great record. This has been a great season, though. I can see a lot of great players. A lot of players did really well. There is an elephant in the room that Donde is in second place.
Who you calling an elephant?
And I think the main explanation to me would be that Cole's finally taught you how to become a better player.
Ouch! Not even the
so
same
congratulations
series.
to him.
Somehow it ends up my success becomes about Cole's. I don't understand how that works.
To be fair, everything on HearthCenter eventually goes back to Cole's, so it's only natural.
I really don't like that trend. Can we stop that?
No, but congratulations. You had a great season.
You say it like it's over.
Wait, yeah, he's retiring now. He's just going out on top 4-0. That's it.
It's done.
I've got the built-in excuse now, though, because the meta is shifting. So if I don't do
That's
well, I'm
true.
just gonna be like, you know what? I had the old meta on lock, and then this meta sucks. That's my built-in excuse if this doesn't go well. Oh man. So I'm always hesitant to put myself anywhere near these lists just because I know people will cry out about that being favoritism for yourself. But honestly, this is only the second time I've ever appeared on the top 10. So, but I don't want to make this. All
statistically, you don't have a loss, so it's kind of hard for them to complain favor because of when you were literally 4-0, from a factual standpoint.
I'm still hesitant. The same thing happens when I do that. If you do a preseason rank or anything like that, I always rank myself lower than I might otherwise expect myself to be, just because I don't want people to think that I'm being full of myself. But I like talking about the other players too. I know what I did. It's not exciting to be, it's like no one wants to come in here and just hear me talk about myself. So this will be the last time I talk about myself. I'm gonna lose this week, get it out of the way, and then you guys don't have to worry about it anymore.
You would probably still be in the rank next week.
We don't know, because I'm actually playing Typical Tyrant this week, so that's a pretty big match.
So you're not leaving. Even if you lose, you're still staying.
Oh wait, the Typical Tyrant plays for Dead Legend, right?
Indeed he does.
Yeah,
dude, I was gonna play you, but he because I was gonna sub for Yellow Dart, but he actually got his scheduling stuff back at the last second, so we could have had that HearthCenter matchup.
That would have been fun. But
I also almost played.
I would have given you a free win, but
I like.
Seems like we're all good now.
So let's take a look at some of the chat had some opinions here. I think I'm gonna scroll up real quick here. So we've got, how is Shads higher than Mako? And that's from Twos. So I'm gonna go straight to the schedule. I mean, it's quite honestly 11-7 versus 11-5. It's pretty negligible in terms of the record, the game score that is. It really comes down to just a slightly stronger schedule for Shad so far in terms of the opponents he's played versus Mako. But I mean, such a minor difference there. That's not really something I'd be too worried about.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about Shad's. Diamond brought it up. But we talked about Shad's. He's 6 in one series, 5 in the other, which is off to a fantastic start. I don't think he's playing in pro.
He is not playing
He's not
in
playing
pro,
pro.
as he is yeah. He's typically plays in like maybe the 4 or the 5, so we might see him in pro in a couple seasons.
I think I was gonna say that would put him in contention for crossover player of the season if he was playing in pro,
Yeah.
Right.
since being in the top 6 of 2 of the series is pretty pretty impressive. Mako pointing out Pond, Hockey, and Oz, they were easy opponents. We didn't say they were easy opponents, though. I mean, Hockey kind of is.
Hockey, yeah, we can't call Hockey like peak prime Hockey anymore after like he's switched over to Overwatch. So.
Yeah, the Hockey
I don't know.
regular season's just starting now, so he was in preseason when he played you. Sarcasm. Is someone push to talking on Discord? I push to talk on Discord, Diamond, because I don't like people hearing like me cough or anything.
Yeah, I also have push to talk on for this.
Who are the crossover players? That's actually a good point. There's quite a few of us playing in all 3 series. Avi being one, and who's won it 2 seasons in a row. I'm playing in all 3 series. Lotus, I believe you are playing in all 3. Is that correct?
No, I'm not doing pro this time. I did it last time, but it's way too much.
No, I can totally understand that. That actually might be a cool feature though. Pond is definitely
Snake is, I know.
Snake, Mako is. Smear might be. I'm pretty sure he's playing in pro and legacy.
Smear sounds like he is. Yeah, I probably.
Maybe we might incorporate the crossover player watch into HearthCenter going forward. That might be a cool little feature to do. Maybe even just do it like every other week or something.
Yeah, we're in need of features because we're having trouble filling our time.
I don't think we're not gonna have trouble filling the time.
No, it's true. We definitely could add.
You've been sarcastic about that a couple weeks now. So let's move on to the next topic. Speaking of filling time, so our next topic tonight was going to be talking about the meta impacts of the 23 cards that have been reinserted into Standard, aka Baby Wild. The graphic did not get completed in time for this. I don't have the cards to show on screen, so I apologize. Stream hopping is hard and all.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lotus, I know you have some very strong opinions on which cards are good and which cards have been underwhelming so far in just the first 2 days of the new meta. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about a couple of the cards that you're liking, a couple of the cards you think maybe just haven't found a home yet.
Sure. So I'll start with the biggest complaint and the card that I thought was going to be good, but didn't think it was going to be this good. And that is Evolve. Evolve has kind of made both Quest Shaman and just Aggro Overload Shaman entirely crazy. That card with Desert Hair just wins the game turn 3 or 4 a lot of times, and then it's over. It's such a strong card. It's kind of crazy.
Now, are you seeing it primarily played in Quest, or are you seeing it primarily played in like the Aggro Overload? I think Jombre had an Aggro Overload variant of Shaman out day 1, which I've seen more of than the Quest Shaman.
I'm seeing a lot of Quests, but it's actually in both. It fits both fine. It's such a good package. You can just put it in. Yeah.
So yeah, it fits the quest just fine. Yeah, no, I mean it's just a good card to go wide on the board too, and if something sticks, obviously Bloodlust is a threat. So yeah, Evolve was a good card back then. It's still a good card now. I guess that's not too shocking.
No, I would say it's a lot better now though because of the discount Doppelgangster.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to wait till turn 6.
Right. And Mogu, if you can get sometimes just 3 hairs in a Mogu and then Evolve, you just won the game. It's over.
Yeah, that's a strong. Well, I should say my problem is whenever I play Mogu and Mutated, I end up with a 4/4 with Taunt, which is not really, or Godfrey. So
the fact that the hairs actually synergize with what Mogu wants to do is pretty crazy as well.
Yeah, it's really crazy. The hairs discount Mogu basically.
So what other cards are you liking so far? What do you think is going to continue to have an impact, not only in Hearthstone, but THL?
Sure. So I think in THL, card that has been growing a lot is N'Zoth, specifically in both Warlock and Priest. So Fury Hunter got to rank 1 legend with this Res Priest, which basically it's a classical Res Priest deck, but in the end you just play N'Zoth and you bring a bunch of stuff back, and it's a pretty strong deck. The interesting part in THL is if you bring Priest, you can now flex both Res Priest and Combo Priest.
Oh yeah, that makes Priest. I mean, it was already good anyway. It's definitely far more
Yes.
viable than it was with the flex option.
Yeah, it just brings them one more level, and Priest really needed to be a bit better, so this is quite the change.
I love it. I love the sarcasm.
Yeah, I would say also, you guys might have seen this on ladder. Flamewaker Tempo / Miracle Mage is a crazy deck, which every once in a while you just get a lot of pings in the face and die. I lost a game for 45 damage on turn 7 yesterday because my opponent played one Flamewaker, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and just pinged me to death, and nothing I could have done.
The only thing I will say that feels bad about that deck is that you're just drawing to those two cards essentially, because everything else in your deck is cheap spells. So if you can just get those two cards consistently, it's strong. But like I played a game with it.
Yes.
I played a couple games with it just to try it out. And there was one game where like literally both Flamewakers were in my bottom 8, and I just sat there trying to stay alive until I could have my miracle turns, and it just never happened. So that feels kind of bad that you're really digging for two cards particularly.
Yeah.
2-card deck, by the way.
You would definitely reduce the deck size if you could for this one. It's a very strong deck.
Yeah, Flamewaker plus like really just like Magic Trick.
Magic Trick is
Frost.
Yeah.
Like those are no-brainers, and like Arcane Missiles. Obviously, it's definitely a deck that I feel like can be cheesy and win maybe against almost anything, but it definitely is a frustrating deck when you run into it on ladder and have no answers. So
yeah, I do, just for Tuesday's sake, otherwise he'll be mad at me, but I have to say that playing the new Innervate Rag still sounds really good. Rag on 6 using Elemental Evocation is really dirty. Yeah.
I ran into lots of Sylvanas last night when I was playing too, which is... Yeah, I remember why I hated playing against that card.
Right.
Especially priests who are, I'm like, hey, I have a cool thing on board, and they're like, well, here's Sylvanas and Shadow Word Death. Thanks. Now it's yours. So yeah, that's fun. Icon, have you gotten to play around much with the new cards, new meta? Well, new old cards.
Yeah, Cartoot Defender synergizes really well with N'Zoth, and seeing the whole Cartoot Sylvanas N'Zoth in any control deck, and it just sort of like shores up the decks that have a little bit less healing is kind of cool to see. I'm actually kind of a fan of neutral packages that can be slotted into a lot of decks. I think that it's friendly to new players or players with a little bit less of a dust budget, and it allows you to play more easily around certain things in the meta. So when decks have extremely distinctive class-specific cards between them or specific neutral cards to support them, compared to other classes, I think that the meta becomes a little bit more expensive and polarized as a result.
Yeah, I definitely like the thought of powerful neutrals, like cards that can go in almost any deck, but it does tend to limit the creativity sometimes with the decks, like like Sylvanas and everything, Rag and everything, etc. N'Zoth now in everything, like how many Death Rattles can you pack in your deck and have them all come back and be a pain? It can get a little tedious, but I think as people get used to these cards being in the meta, they won't feel the need to slam them into every deck, and we'll start to see diversity again. But for right now, it's just Death Rattle after Death Rattle on ladder, at least in my experience, which is rank 5 right now. So people just playing nothing but that.
Yeah. One thing about ladder as well, if you're climbing these days, people are playing very greedy decks.
Oh yes. As is tradition with the new meta.
Yeah, an easy way to climb is just bring out your Murlocs, hit fade fast. Bring out Murloc Shaman or Murloc Paladin, and you're going to win. It's pretty easy this time.
That's like one of those legend memes you see on Reddit, where it's like Murloc plus Prismatic
Like the
Lance
thing where they have the
equals
cards with the
1
arrows
level.
between them and stuff.
Yeah.
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 That's that's what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm. It's true though. It's
Yeah.
just working right now. People want to play their super greedy res priest. You just hit them in the face.
And I think in at least in Hero and Pro, you'll see I think a lot of people still be able to physically bring those decks and be successful. Because I mean, Legacy, it comes down to you got to win with everything as you know with Conquest. So if you do bring a super greedy deck and end up against an all aggro lineup, you're just out of luck. But in Hero, you do have the option for counterplay. In Pro, you do have the option for shields. So there is a little bit more maneuverability there. And I think we'll start to see in Hero and Pro a lot of these greedy decks be present in lineups, whereas I think Legacy will continue to be pretty much the standard that we've seen in the first 4 weeks of the season at the very least. Flexible classes as usual, with the lean towards more aggressive decks. That's just my expectation on it. But speaking of Legacy, why don't we talk about some Legacy matches that are coming up this week? So we've got 5 matches that we want to talk about, which you can see on your screen there. We're just going to start at the top with the Gold Conference. Big match between Super Murloc and Force of Will. Super Murloc's 4-0. Force of Will's 3-1. He was one of the 3-1 players that didn't quite make the top 15. For prep is for rogues, not pilots. We've got Daravis, who's 4-0. Actually 2 matches for the Wet Boys versus Destubs this week. Daravis is 4-0 versus Comp 4-0, which is hands down the biggest match of the week. And then Avi is at 3-1 versus Shimjim, who's 4-0. And I think this is the match that Shimjim can really cement himself and move himself up this list if he moves to 5-0. So I would hazard a guess to say you guys are looking for a Daravis versus Comp the most. But is there any other matchup there that you guys are particularly looking forward to?
I mean, obviously Daravis versus Comp is insane, but Avi versus Shimjim is a match that we're really lucky to have too. That's 2 really high level players with really great records going at it, and obviously being 3-1 is not something you typically see, so it's definitely going to be a hyped up match as well. We're definitely not starved for exciting matchups this season or this week.
Yeah. I'm very excited for that one. Both of them beat me. They're my 2 losses, so I'm very looking forward to that match. Hopefully it is on.
Sorry, Lotus, you cut out there. What were you saying?
Oh, so actually both Avi and Shimjim beat me this season so far, so I'm really looking forward to see that match. And
You cut out at the same time both times.
Oh, oops. Sorry, my connection has been a little weird. I'm really looking forward for Avi versus Shimjim, though.
Yeah,
looks like a good match.
That should definitely be a good match. An important one for the top of the Gold Conference. These are the 2 teams that are at the top of the Gold Conference right now. So yeah, I think that is going to most likely be a repeat playoff matchup. Like this is kind of a playoff preview. Wet Boys versus Destubs in these particular matchups as well. So should be an interesting one to watch. And as you can see right below them, we've got our crossover this week of DMB versus Pod People. So we got Surlos at 3-1, Zeroshio at 2-2. And then on the red side, highlighting a team and players that have struggled a bit out of the gate, we've got Freeloader for SPG. He's 1-2 right now. And Pond, a.k.a. Free Hong Kong now, is 1-3 for Hearthstone and Chill. So red is definitely... these are 2 teams that are right on the outside of playoffs looking in and will need to move on up, and this is kind of the centerpiece of this match here. These are 2 players that will want to get back on track. So are you guys any thoughts on what might happen in these games? Any predictions you want to make? Icon, I'll start with you.
Pond is due for a comeback. Pond is too good to be 1-3, and I think that if he finds a nice little meta combination that suits him, I think that he'll make a comeback in these next couple weeks. I was very impressed by what I saw from him last season, and I think that he's only due to improve from here.
How about you, Lotus?
I think I'll do a very crazy guess, but I think the streak is going to end this week. That's my hope for this week.
I think Comp's taking out Daravis.
I'm going to bet that. Why not, right?
Someone's gonna clip that.
Boy.
By the way.
If what's his name couldn't do it,
Kungmar?
Yeah, if Kungmar couldn't do it, I don't know who can, man.
Well, Hearthstone is a luck game. You can be the best player in the world, and you'll still lose sometimes. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I will never not tell the story of Just Saying at DreamHack losing to Arakoki at rank 25 on mobile.
you have brought that up a few times. I always do enjoy that. So Hero games. We got 3 games to talk about. One is a crossover match. We've alluded to it earlier. It's myself versus Typical Tyrant, 2 4-0 players going at it there. And then the other 2 matches are teal matches. Copper Talon for Bees. He's 3-1 versus Super Murloc, who's 2-2 of the Cult. 2-star Mako of KGB versus 8-bit of Tap Blast. They're both 3-1. So a couple big matches there. Super Murloc not the same record that he's got in Legacy, but still having a great season overall. So we highlighted him twice here. The match between myself and Typical Tyrant is happening Friday night. We did let Saku know we were available for stream if he wants it. So perhaps that will be on stream Friday night. So just to keep an eye out for that. But yeah, that should be fun. Hopefully I figure out what the heck I want to play by Friday. I've got to narrow it down to 4 classes tonight. But I'll be honest and say I don't even really know what I'm going to submit yet.
Yeah.
That's a big mood.
I mean, it's the meta's still forming. I'm gonna do some research. We're gonna make some picks tonight. But as far as teal goes, what do you guys like about? Who do you like in these 2 matches? Copper versus Super Murloc, 2-star. Mako versus 8-bit. I mean, 8 is like 6 more than 2, right? So that it's got to be 8-bit.
The thing that people are forgetting about this is that Mako and 8-bit actually already played last season in the Hero semifinals or possibly the finals. And I'll just say that was an interesting game. There was a lot of interesting decisions being made. But the thing is Mako is the Mako of last season is nothing like the Mako of this season, right? He's done a whole bunch of work. He's improved himself a ton as a Hearthstone player. He's super consistent across a whole bunch of series, right? He's finding success in every different format. And I think 8-bit's a decent 4C, but I can't say that I've seen the same level of meteoric rise from him.
Right.
And I'd be pretty hyped on Mako right now looking at this.
That's scary too, considering he won Rookie of the Season 3 seasons ago at this point?
3 seasons ago was his inaugural season in THL.
In Legacy, right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Mako is in my team. He puts a lot of work. He's been doing really well. Yeah, I think he'll do a good job against 8-bit. I expect him to win.
I would have to lean towards Mako as well at this point. And Copper Talon too. I mean, he's 3-1 right now, and he's consistently a very strong player. Super Murloc, despite the quick start he's off to in both series, Copper Talon should not be taken lightly. And I think I got to give a slight edge to Copper here over in Hero. Maybe if it was Legacy, I'd pick Super Murloc, but I watched Copper Talon as a teammate of his last season, how he preps and how he plays, and he's great player, so I think he wins that one over Super Murloc.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
So last but not least, we got 2 pro matches to talk about, and you'll notice we are missing. We've got that upper right quadrant of the screen that's open. Challenger's open. We'll have Challenger matches to talk about coming up too. Not this week, but if you haven't signed up yet, and you want to sign up, go sign up for Challenger. It is live, or will be live. The signups are live, and we want to talk about you because you are important to us, and we love you. Unless you're mean to us, in which case we don't love you. But we'll probably still talk about you. But for now, we're going to talk about Pro. So we got Brushy Tuna of the Unknown versus Seamacomp of Taplast. So they're both 3-1. And then Kungmar, he of the loss last week to Derivis, is now 3-1 and probably very mad. And is going to try to take it on Smear of Dr. Boom at 3-1. So these are two big matches. These are four teams that are all very much in the playoff hunt right now and are going to try and separate themselves so they can not lose to the other guys, which is one of the best teams in Pro that everyone crapped all over. Suck it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So
we did do that, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it too. Because
Yeah.
we looked at all the rosters, and you're like, man, everybody's like, these are all collections of players that played Pro last season, and then we just kind of made, like I got added to DMB basically, and we just it's been a fun time. We were having a great time in Discord. So y'all can take that and shove it. But
Sure.
but back to the actual matches that we want to talk about the matches. So Brushy's having a great season in Pro. I think it's the strongest series overall right now. And C-Mac is, he's a consistent player. So this is a good match. I think I saw C-Mac might have already had a top 8 on the Masters qualifiers, if I'm not mistaken.
That would not be a surprise.
Yeah,
That would make sense.
I think he's 1 out of 5 now, or at least he was going into Sunday. He fared better than I did. I got through 4 rounds on Sunday.
Nice.
And then got soundly destroyed in the final round that I played. Like it was a really bad matchup for me, and I did not make it better by drawing like crap.
Oh.
Yeah, man, hockey. You won a pack too. There you go. Yeah, I got 5 packs this weekend, so that was pretty good. I was pretty happy
Nice.
about that. And yeah, finally managed to pull a legendary after like 30. I think it was 38 packs.
Which one did you pull?
I got who was it? I think I got Octosari out of it.
Oh, that's a playable.
Yeah, no, I wasn't mad about it. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
So, Kungmar versus Smear. This might seem like a bit of a mismatch. Icon, you know Smear very well. What do you think Smear needs to do to get this win versus Kungmar?
Smear doesn't actually need to do much. This isn't a mismatch because Smear has plot armor, and plot armor means that he plays up to the level of whatever he's playing against. We saw this for like 5 straight weeks in a row in Legacy last season, where everybody would be like, "Oh, this guy's a 4 seed. He's playing against a 550 capped person." And Smear would go, "Nah, I'm just gonna beat you instead," over and over and over. And sooner or later, people are gonna have to stop saying that. He literally has plot armor. He's going to be fine. I would actually give this to Smear.
I think if there's any consolation to, not consolation, consideration to Smear winning here, it might be that the meta is still unsettled and might be able to take Kungmar by surprise a little bit. But I would still have to lean to Kungmar being probably the favored player here, even though I'm not saying that Smear's bad in any way. But Kungmar was on a different level last season, at least on ladder, and he was undefeated until Derivis got a hold of him. So it still seems like Kungmar is the favorite to me. Lotus, what do you think? We're split 1-1 right now. So what do you be the decider here?
Sure. So we cast Kungmar versus Derivis last week, and after watching that match, I was talking to Kungmar, and he was already watching it. He watched the last segment as soon as we finished, and he was telling me that he was already practicing, and I think that's the kind of attitude that makes a good player. So I still expect him to win. I think he's going to do well this week and the season overall.
Yeah, he's a beast for sure. As Hockey pointed out, as we said earlier, he was ranked 1 on NA and EU simultaneously and finished 1 and 2 last season on the 2 servers. So he is pretty good player. So that those are all the matches we're talking about this week, and that is pretty much it for us. We are kind of pulling in the station here at this point. If anybody in chat has any questions, certainly happy to answer them before we head out here. Other than that, anything you guys want to talk about before we leave? Lotus, anything?
Well, we already said it, but don't forget to sign up for Challenger Series.
Yes, please do that if you want to play Specialist. Psych, it's not Specialist. You don't get to play Specialist. It's Conquest, just like the Masters Tour is. So it's the best of 3 with a ban.
He says you don't get to play Specialist. I think the proper verbiage is you don't have to play Specialist. You are not forced to play Specialist. You will not be subjected to the awfulness that is the Specialist format.
Subjected, I think, is the operant term. That was a dark time. That was a dark time for competitive Hearthstone.
Right.
It's not the only dark time.
No. At least there's no patches.
So, yeah, I guess.
At least all the GMs are still here. Oh wait.
Well, before we head out, Icon, you got anything for us?
只要让women时代的 gaming.
Appreciate it. Well, that's it for us. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good luck in your matches. And, hopefully we'll be back next week now. Oh, boy.